In the 50s, Russia was the first country to successfully send satellites to space. This was a massive achievement and sparked what is now called the space race between the Soviet Union and the United States. Since Russia has succeeded in sending satellites to space, this meant America was trailing behind the Soviets in the space race. In the 1960s, America was determined to beat Russia in the space race by any means, and they had just a plan to do so. America had dedicated its time and resources to achieving what was deemed the impossible, sending humans to the moon and returning them back safely. On July 1969, the United States Apollo 11 was the first crewed mission to land on the moon. Two American astronauts, Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin, were the first to walk on the moon, and they placed the American flag down on the moon's crust. For 2.5 hours, a live broadcast was running from the moon, with over 500 million people watching the event live in amazement. Humans had just traveled and walked on the moon. According to NASA, America traveled to the moon in total of 6 times.
So they were streaming from the moon? They were live streaming from the moon? That's possible? That's a long way away, bro. How do you do that? Y'all got some crazy satellites. Y'all got some crazy Wi-Fi to be able to do that.
While most of the country was celebrating this incredible achievement, a few people weren't so convinced. Some people felt that the footage of the astronauts landing on the moon wasn't footage filmed on the moon at all, but instead in a Hollywood movie studio. The first person to state that the moon landing was a hoax was Bill Kaysing, who was a writer working for the Rolling Stones in the 60s. Bill believed it just wasn't possible to travel to the moon and back safely with the technology available in the 60s. This led him to eventually write an entire book in 1976 called We Never Went to the Moon, America's $30 billion swindle,
before.
detailing why he believed the moon landing was all a hoax. In Bill's book, he wrote about how NASA lacked the technological expertise to put a man on the moon and bring him back safely. One of his main arguments was that he felt the absence of stars in the lunar surface photographs was indicative of a hoax. Bill also felt that there was
Wait, I've never heard of that one. I've heard of like the flags waving or whatever. Somehow there's no wind in space. I don't know what that means, but the star thing, I've never heard the star thing. I've never heard that theory before. That's kind of interesting.
Explained optical anomalies in the photographs taken on the moon. He also felt that what took place in 1967 on the Apollo 1 space mission, where the crew unfortunately passed away, was done intentionally to silence the astronauts who were supposedly going to expose space travel as a hoax. Bill became...
They did it to JFK. I'm not editing. I'm not cutting that out. They did it to JFK. They killed JFK. So they did it to Epstein too. They killed Epstein.
Became popular amongst those who weren't quite sure we traveled to the moon. Bill became known as the creator of the moon landing conspiracy theories that to this day live on. Years later, many people have started to doubt the moon landing for many different reasons. One of the main reasons is the moon landing footage. Maybe back in the 1960s, this footage might have appeared believable, but in 2023, this footage appears comical and very suspicious. The way the astronauts are moving in the footage just seems odd to me.
Bro.
It doesn't look real. It looks like edited footage. People also bring up the fact that we haven't sent humans back to the moon again since the so-called successful attempts in the 60s. How is it that we were able to travel to the moon 6 times in the 60s, but we can't seem to do it today, even with how advanced technology has become? The more that I look into the moon landing, the more that I believe we never went to the moon. I believe those who run our world had a sinister reason to stage the moon landing. Most people don't know that the Freemasons were actually behind the moon landing. Interestingly enough, Buzz Aldrin, one of the 2 men to go to the moon, was a member of the Freemasons. Everybody knows about the American flag being placed on the moon. What many people don't know is that Edwin actually traveled to space with
a Scottish Rite flag that went to the moon. The pilot and the astronaut team also carried with him another flag. It was a flag not of a country. It was the only flag he had with him for the lunar walk. The flag of Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, Southern Jurisdiction of the USA.
with a Scottish Rite Masonic flag given to him by the supreme leaders of Freemasonry. Buzz was instructed by the Supreme Council of Freemasons to take the flag to the moon and back. The Masonic flag sits at the Masonic House of the Temple Archives and Museum. The fact that most people don't know about this just shows this information isn't spoken about.
I've never heard of that
This is one of the
before.
main reasons why I don't believe what we are told regarding the moon landing. If we take a listen to this Freemason that works at the museum where the flag is kept, we can see he openly admits the Masons were behind the moon landing.
Hi, I'm Joshua Poole, Museum Curator here at the Scottish Rite House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. Today it is my pleasure to be able to speak to you about the Scottish Rite flag that went to the moon in 1969. Knowing that Buzz Aldrin would be taking part in the Apollo 11 mission, the Supreme Council thought it would be nice if he could take something Masonic with him to infinity and beyond, because he was going where no man, or Mason for that matter, had ever gone before. See what I did there? The Supreme Council felt that a flag that represented the Supreme Council and Freemasonry in general would do the job. So the flag was hand-sewn by Inga Baum, who was the librarian of the Supreme Council in 1969. The flag itself is white silk. It is edged by a band of gold and embroidered with the words, the Supreme Council, 33rd degree, Southern Jurisdiction, USA, the Southern Jurisdiction motto, Deus me umque jus, the double-headed eagle, the crown of the 33rd degree, the insignia of the Grand Commander, and the insignia of a Master Mason. After the Apollo 11 mission on September 16, 1969, Buzz Aldrin visited the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C., and presented the flag to Grand Commander Luther Smith. Since then, the flag has remained in the custody of the House of the Temple's Archives and Museum Department. In an article about the Buzz Aldrin flag in the December 1969 issue of the New Age magazine, the historical significance of the Apollo 11 mission and its meaning for Masonry were discussed. So, does the landing on the moon have anything to do with Masonry? I think this article put it nicely by ending with this quote: "When man reaches new worlds, Masonry will be there." This flag's presence during the historic lunar expedition symbolizes Masonry's universal appeal. Masonry has been at the forefront of progress and human enlightenment since its beginnings, and will continue to be. This flag serves as a reminder of this. So, Masonry will always be there and will continue to boldly go where no man has gone before.
As you heard for yourself, the museum guide admits the moon landing was important to the Masons. In my opinion, it could be because of moon magic, as we all know the Masons are occultists. Either way, to me, this 100% proves the Masons had their hand in the moon landing event. Many people think NASA and the government staged the moon landing in order to declare victory over Russia in the space race. But I think it's much deeper than that. In my opinion, the reason I believe it was done was to further guide people away from God. Many people see the existence of space as proof against God's existence. This is one of the agendas the Masons have been pushing since the Age of Reason in the 1700s. In my opinion, looking at the moon landing footage just doesn't convince me we actually traveled to the moon. I also know that the Masons had a hidden agenda with the moon landing event. If we look at the Illuminati trading card game that was created in the 90s, we see just that. The Illuminati card game, for those that didn't see my video, was a card game made by Steve Jackson in 1995 that predicted several future events. If you want to know more about the card game, check out this video after this one. The moon landing is actually one of the...
I've seen it. I've seen that video, bro. It's some pretty crazy cards. You hear the rain?
Cards are part of the game, and it depicts some interesting imagery. Like I spoke about in the video I made on the card game, the card shows the moon landing as a staged event. The card clearly depicts the moon landing being hoaxed, showing the moon landing being filmed in a movie studio, similar to what many people already believe.
Okay, but excuse me. The card game came out in what, 95? The moon landing was in the 60s, right? So I mean, like, there's other things in the card game where it's like, okay, you know, they wrote about this way before it happened. Like, there's Trump in the card game for some reason, 9/11, etc., things like that. But like this was already a conspiracy theory. So I don't know if you can base this part off of like your theory, or the theory, not your theory. I don't know.
The card in the Illuminati New World Order card game was supposed to be moves to bring in the New World Order. and staging the moon landing strangely seems to be one of those moves. Now, when we consider the Masons were 100% behind the moon landing, and also the fact that they put it in a game that went on to predict several future events, it just seems to prove to me that this was all staged. Buzz Aldrin himself, the Mason that was sent to the moon, claims out of his own mouth that we never went to the moon.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know. But I think I know, because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. We didn't, because...
Yo, what? That's crazy. Is this man still alive? Is Buzz still alive? I'll look that up after. I'll look that up after the video if Buzz is still alive, because that's a crazy. Yo.
We did.
As you heard for yourself, Buzz Aldrin openly tells an 8-year-old girl, we never traveled to the moon. It honestly appears the Masons had an alternative agenda with claiming to have gone to the moon, and it had nothing to do with the space race. It's obvious things were hidden in regards to the moon landing. Whether we truly went to the moon, to me, will remain a mystery. But one thing's for sure, those who run our world were behind it for their own sinister reason. Like I always say, we must remember that every day we wake up, our souls are at stake. And we also must remember to help those who can't see the truth, find the truth. Well, that's it for this video.
If you couldn't tell, I watch this channel a lot. I watch this channel a lot, bro. But thank you guys for stopping by and just, watching this with me and just watching me be stupid and react to it and give like a little intellectual opinion on the card game or whatever it is. Like, subscribe, hit the little notification bell, the ding ding, so that when I upload, you get a ding ding, I don't know. Y'all come back now, you hear? There we go. I like that. I might make that a thing.